Hey guys, it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. Today I have my book haul for you, so stay tuned. So today I have 43 books to show you. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think I went a little crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I ended up ordering a lot. I also did quite a bit of unboxing, so there's some subscription box books here. But yeah, I ordered a lot. In 3 years, when I do my Have I Read It for this one, I'm gonna regret it. Hopefully I'll get to them before then. Oh, but we'll see. Okay, so I have books here that are, as I said, from subscription boxes. I have books from things that I've ordered, and I also have a couple of books that were gifted to me. Ooh, hold on. So I said I had 43 books, but that's incorrect because I just thought of 3 more books that I just happen to have in other piles. So it's actually 46 books that I have here to show you. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the 3 that I just picked up and that are currently in my hands. So I picked up Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. These are books 2 and 3 in the Grishaverse Shadow and Bone series, and the series follows a girl named Elena Starkove who is an orphan, and her and her best friend Mal, they're orphans, and they end up going into the first army, which is the non-magical army, and the second army is the Grisha army, the magical army. And it turns out that Elena actually has a magical ability, so she's whisked away to the palace to train under someone called the Darkling, and learns that her power is a very special one. And the first book anyway is kind of her coming to terms with being a Grisha and learning to use her powers and things like that. So these are the second 2 books in that series. And I can tell you, I've already read the first one and the second one, and I'm working on the third one, and I love them. And the other one that I was holding on to, because it was actually part of my wrap-up for last month, was Alicia in Atlantis by Nathalie Lane. This is, I believe, a self-published book. I could be mistaken about that. This was actually sent to me by the author, and it's middle grade. It's about a girl named Alicia who, she is an empath. She overly feels everybody's, not just their emotions, but it gets more than that. And she's kind of an orphan as well, but she was being raised by her stepdad. So her father, as far as she knew, passed away before she was born or something, and then her mother remarried, and eventually her mother died as well in an accident. And so she's been raised by her stepfather, and he has a job overseas where she doesn't want to go. She wants to go to this boarding school that's close to the town where her mother is from, so maybe she can learn a little bit about her mother. And her very first day there, she's kind of overwhelmed by the emotions of all of the other students and kind of runs away for a break. And she goes to this town where her mother's from, and she's just walking around, and she hears a siren song, and next thing she knows, she is being whisked away to Atlantis, and finds out that the only way she could be there is if she has ancestry there. And it turns out that maybe her parents are actually from there, and she has the ability to enroll in the school there, and they kind of like make everybody think that she's still going to this other school, but she's going to the school in Atlantis, and she's trying to find out information about her family. But that's tricky because the emperor here, he makes it punishable by death about asking about missing people. And there's also like segregation, and this emperor is very classist, and there's just a lot going on in this. If you're a fan of Keeper of the Lost Cities, I would say this is a book that you would enjoy. Okay, so let's just start with the ones that are up here. These first two are ones that were gifted to me. So the first one I have here is the Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. And this was gifted to me by my friend Barbara. She's part of my like Twitter buddy reading group. So she gifted me this. And this says, Carrie Duncan has worked for home remodeling and design gurus Melissa and Rusty Tripp for a decade. A country girl at heart, Carrie started in their first store at 16, and more than anyone would suspect, has helped them build an empire. With a new show and a book about to launch, the Tripps are on the verge of superstardom. There's only one problem. America's favorite couple can't stand each other. James McCann, MIT graduate and engineering genius, was originally hired as a structural engineer, but the job isn't all he thought it would be. The last straw, both he and Carrie must go on a book tour with the Tripps and keep the wheels from falling off the proverbial bus. Unfortunately, neither of them is in a position to quit. Carrie needs health insurance, and James has been promised the role of a lifetime if he can just keep the couple on track for a few more weeks. While road tripping with the Tripps up the West Coast, Carrie and James vow to work together to keep their bosses' secrets hidden and their own job secure. But if they stop playing along and start playing for keeps, they may have the chance to build something beautiful together. From the hilariously zany and heartfelt Christina Lauren comes a romantic comedy that proves if it's broke, you might as well fix it. And this sounds super cute, and I think this is going to be a really fun read. So this next book here was gifted to me by my mom, and she knows this author's mother and had a copy sent to me so that I could read it and review it here on my channel. My mom apparently loved this book and flew through it. It is called There Are Things I Know by Karen B. Golightly. And it says, 8-year-old Pepper sees the world a little differently from most people. One day, during a field trip, he is kidnapped by a stranger and driven to rural Arkansas. The man who calls himself Uncle Dan claims that Pepper's mother has died and they are to live together from now on, but Pepper isn't convinced. He's always found it hard to figure out when people are lying, but he's absolutely certain his mother is alive and he's going to find her. And if I remember correctly, this is, like, the kid is autistic in here. I do believe that was the case. Anyway, this is a relatively short book as well. It's only 186 pages, so this seems like one that you can definitely fly through. Okay, so the next few books are ones that came in different subscription boxes. I think that this first one was in one of my Brave Girls Book Club boxes. And that is When Life Gives You Mangoes by Corrine Getton. And this says, a summer she can't remember, a friendship she won't forget. Nothing happens in Sycamore, the small village where Clara lives. At least that's how it seems. She lives eating ripe mangoes fallen from trees, running outside in the rainy season, and escaping to her secret hideout with her best friend, Gaina. There's only one problem. She can't remember anything about the previous summer. When a quirky girl called Rudy arrives from England, everything starts to change. Gaina stops acting like a best friend while Rudy and Clara roam across the island and uncover an old family secret. As the summer reaches its peak and the island storms begin, Clara's memory starts to return and she must finally face the truth of what happened last year. And this is middle grade and it sounds really good. I'm really curious as to what happened. And this one's also only 222 pages, so another quick read, I'm sure. Okay, so these next 4 books, I believe, came from my Once Upon a Book Club Advent box. So the first one I have here, and this is probably the one I'm most excited about out of these 4, is Immoral Code by Lillian Clark. And this says, the mastermind, Nari. Nari is also the hacker, the coordinator, and the con woman. Basically, the evil genius who makes this entire heist possible. The right-hand woman, Bellamy. Bellamy is also the motive, the innocent turned not so innocent victim whose own terrible luck kicks everything into motion. The distraction, Reese. Yes, said distraction involves fake blood and screaming in public, and yes, Reese was born to play this role. The Grease Man, Santiago. His skills include looking older than a teenager in a suit and extreme agility due to years as a champion diver, as well as staying calm when your friends are freaking out. So obviously essential. The Driver, Keegan. Unfortunately, Keegan is also the most disturbed by the scale of the felonies they are about to commit, and most likely to cut and run. The Mark, Robert Foster, aka Bellamy's all but absent father. Bellamy and her mother have gotten along just fine with the paltry child support Foster has been paying for the last 18 years, but they hit a snag when Bellamy cites him on her financial aid application for MIT. Foster is now a billionaire, and his wealth disqualifies her from any assistance. Bellamy, Nari, Reese, Santiago, and Keegan decide to use their unique set of skills to take Bellamy's fate into their own hands with a heist that, well, yes, is a little morally questionable, but isn't depriving your own daughter of an education she's worked her butt off for pretty morally questionable too. Lillian Clark's debut is a hilarious and thought-provoking Robin Hood story for the 21st century, and this very much gives me like Death Prefers Blonde vibes and The Deceivers vibes. I'm just like, oh yes, I love this, and I'm super excited to read this one. Next up we have Dreamland Burning by Jennifer Latham. And this says, some bodies won't stay buried. Some stories need to be told. When 17-year-old Rowan Chase finds a skeleton on her family's property, she has no idea that investigating the brutal, centuries-old murder will lead to a summer of painful discoveries about the past, the present, and herself. 100 years earlier, a single violent encounter propels 17-year-old Will Tillman into a racial firestorm, sparking a journey towards self-discovery where Will must confront his own inner demons as he struggles to do what's right the night Tulsa burns. Through intricately woven alternating perspectives, Jennifer Latham's page-turner brings the Tulsa race riot of 1921 to life and raises important questions about the complex state of U.S. race relations, both yesterday and today. Then we have 8 Days on Planet Earth by Kat Jordan. And this says, how long does it take to travel 20 light years to Earth? How long does it take to fall in love? To the universe, 8 days is a mere blip, but to Matty Jones, it may be just enough time to change his life. On the hot summer day Matty's dad leaves for good, a strange girl suddenly appears in the empty field next to the Joneses' family farm, the very field in rural Pennsylvania where a spaceship supposedly landed 50 years ago. She is uniquely beautiful, sweet, and smart, and she tells Matty she's waiting for her spaceship to return to pick her up. Of course she is. Matty has heard all of the impossible UFO stories for each of his 17 years. The conspiracy theories, the wild rumors, the crazy belief in life beyond the stars. As a kid, he searched the skies and studied the constellations with his dad. But all of that is behind him now. Dad's gone and Matty's stuck. But now there is Priya. She must be crazy. Or high, right? She must be. As Matty unravels the mystery of Priya, he realizes there's far more to her than he first imagined. And if he can learn to believe in what he can't see, the universe, aliens, love, then maybe the impossible is possible after all. Okay, next up we have This Heart of Mine by C.C. Hunter. And this one says, a new heart saved her life, but will it help her find out what really happened to its donor? 17-year-old Leah McKenzie is heartless. An artificial heart in a backpack is keeping her alive. However, this solution only offers her a few years. And with her rare blood type, a transplant isn't likely. Living like you are dying isn't all it's cracked up to be, but when a heart becomes available, she's given a second chance at life. Except Leah discovers who the donor was, a boy from her school, and they're saying he killed himself. Plagued with dreams since the transplant, she realizes she may hold the clues to what really happened. Matt refuses to believe his twin killed himself. When Leah seeks him out, he learns they are both having similar dreams, and he's certain it means something. While unraveling the secrets of his brother's final moments, Leah and Matt find each other and a love they're terrified to lose. But life and even new hearts don't come with guarantees. Who knew living took more courage than dying? C.C. Hunter's This Heart of Mine is a haunting, poignant tale about living and dying and surviving grief, guilt, and heartache while discovering love and hope in the midst of sadness. Okay, the next several books are from different Unplugged book boxes. So there's the regular adult ones, there's the regular YA ones, there's also a special edition middle grade one they did, and a Christmas one they did. So the first one here is A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow by Laura Taylor Namey. And this one says, for Lila Reyes, a summer in England was never part of the plan. The plan was 1. Take over her abuela's role as head baker at their panaderia. 2. Move in with her best friend after graduation. And 3. Live happily ever after with her boyfriend. But then the trifecta happened, and everything, including Lila herself, fell apart. Worried about Lila's mental health, her parents make a new plan for her. Spend 3 months with family friends in Winchester, England to relax and reset. But with the lack of sun, a grumpy inn cook, and a small town lacking Miami flavor, both in food and otherwise, what would be a dream trip for some feels more like a nightmare to Lila, until she meets Orion Maxwell. A tea shop clerk with troubles of his own, Orion is determined to help Lila out of her funk and appoints himself as her personal tour guide. From Winchester's drama-filled music scene to the sweeping English countryside, it isn't long before Lila is charmed not only by Orion, but also by England itself. Soon, a new future begins to form in Lila's mind, one that would mean leaving everything she ever planned behind. And next we have, this is one of the Christmas ones. It's One More Christmas by Sarah Morgan. And this says, for sisters Samantha and Ella Mitchell, Christmas is their most precious time of the year, a time for togetherness, love, and celebration. Most of all, it's about making up for everything their childhood Christmases lacked. But this year, they'll be buying presents for the most unexpected guest of all, their estranged mother. It's been 5 years since they last saw each other, but when their mom calls out of the blue and promises that this Christmas will be different, Samantha and Ella cautiously agree to spend it all together. Gail Mitchell is at the top of her career, but her success has come at a price, her relationship with her daughters. She never seemed to say or do the right things. Her tough love approach was designed to make them stronger, but instead managed to push them away, until a brush with her own mortality forces Gail to make amends. As the snowflakes fall on their first family celebration in years, the Mitchell women must learn that sometimes facing up to the past is all you need to heal your heart. Okay, next we have The Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry by C.M. Wagoner. And I think this one sounds really interesting. It says, sparks fly in this enchanting fantasy novel from the author of Unnatural Magic, when a down-and-out fire witch and a young gentlewoman join forces against a deadly conspiracy. Delaria Wells, petty con artist, occasional thief, and partly educated fire witch, is behind on her rent in the city of Lice Court again. Then she sees the wanted sign seeking female persons of martial or magical ability to guard a lady of some importance prior to the celebration of her marriage. Deli fast talks her way into the job and joins a team of highly peculiar women tasked with protecting their wealthy charge from unknown assassins. Deli quickly sets her sights on one of her companions, the confident and well-bred Win Sidnalum. The job looks like nothing but romance and easy money until things take a deadly and undead turn. With the help of a bird-loving necromancer, a shape-shifting schoolgirl, and an ill-tempered, reanimated mouse named Buttons, Deli and Win are determined to get the best of an adversary who wields a twisted magic and has friends in the highest of places. This sounds like so much fun. And it's queer, which I also love, and magical, and kick-butt girl assassins, and yeah, this sounds great. Okay, next up we have Simmer Down by Sarah Smith. That's a lot of S's. It says, Nikki DeMarco knew life wouldn't be all sunshine and coconuts when she quit her dream job to help her mom serve up mouth-watering Filipino dishes to hungry beachgoers. But she didn't expect the Maui food truck scene to be so eat or be eaten, or the competition to be so smoking hot. But Tiva's Filipina cuisine has faced bigger road bumps than the arrival of Calum James. Nikki doesn't care how delectable the British food truck owner is. He rudely set up shop next to her coveted beach parking spot. He's stealing her customers and fanning the flames of a public feud that makes her see sparks. The solution? Let the upcoming Maui Food Festival decide their fate. Winner keeps the spot, loser pounds sand. But the longer their rivalry simmers, the more Nikki starts to see a different side of Calum, a sweet, protective side. Is she brave enough to call a truce? Or will trusting Calum with her heart mean jumping from the frying pan into the fire? And this one sounds so fun. Oh, yes. Next we have, this is one of the other Christmas ones that came in that box. We have we have A Princess for Christmas by Jenny Holiday. And this says, Leo Ricci's handling all he can. Between taking care of his little sister Gabby, driving a cab, and being his Bronx apartment building super. But when Gabby spots a princess in a gown outside the United Nations trying to hail a cab, she begs her brother to stop and help. Before he knows it, he's got a real-life damsel in distress in the back seat. Princess Marie of Eldovia shouldn't be hailing a cab, or even in New York. But after her mother's death, her father plunged into a devastating depression, and the fate of her small alpine country fell on Marie's shoulders. She's taken aback by the gruff but devastatingly handsome driver, who shows her more kindness than she's seen in a long time. When Marie asks Leo to be her driver for the rest of her visit, he agrees, thinking he'll squire a rich miss around and make more money than he has in months. He doesn't expect to start longing for the unpredictable Marie, and when he and Gabby end up in Eldovia for Christmas, he discovers the princess who is all wrong for him, maybe the woman who is his perfect match. And this sounds super cute. And it also kind of gives me Princess Diary vibes, I guess because of the whole Eldovia, but it makes me think of Indovia, I think is the town where the Princess Diaries were. Anyway, next up we have, this one was their middle grade one, and that is Skysong by Abby Elphinstone. And this says, the snowy kingdom of Erkenwald was once a magical place, until an evil ice witch cursed the land and began stealing the voices of the kingdom's people to increase her powers. Eska is one of the many prisoners of the Ice Queen. Eska, with no memories of her past, only knows that she cannot allow the Ice Queen to take her voice, that it might be special in some way. When young inventor Flint sneaks into the Ice Queen's palace in an attempt to rescue his mother, he ends up rescuing Eska instead. Together, Flint and Eska must journey to the Nevercliffs and beyond in search of an ancient, long-forgotten song with the power to end the Ice Queen's reign and return voice back to the people of Erkenwald. This is the story of an eagle huntress, a boy inventor, and a wicked queen with a castle made from ice. But it's also a story about finding a place to belong, even at the farthest reaches of the world. And I know it's not related at all, but the first thing that came to mind with this was Ursula and like taking the voices and stuff. Yeah. Okay, next up we have Happily Ever Afters by Elise Bryant. And this says, 16-year-old Tessa Johnson has never felt like the protagonist in her own life. She's rarely seen herself reflected in the pages of the romance novels she loves. The only place she's a true leading lady is in her own writing, in this swoony love story she shares only with Caroline, her best friend. When Tessa is accepted into the writing program of a prestigious art school, she's excited to finally let her story shine. but when she goes to her first workshop, the words are gone. Fortunately, Caroline has a solution. Tessa just needs to find some inspiration in a real-life love story of her own. And she's ready with a list of romance novel-inspired steps to a happily ever after. Nico, the brooding artist who looks like he walked out of one of Tessa's stories, is cast as the perfect Prince Charming. But as Tessa checks off each item on the list, she gets further away from herself. She risks losing everything she cares about, including the surprising bond she develops with Sweet Sam, who lives across the street. She's on her way to having her own real-life love story, but is it the one she wants after all? And this sounds super cute. Okay, next up we have The Lady Upstairs by Haley Sutton. And this says, a deliciously dark thriller about a woman who makes a living taking down terrible men, then finds herself in over her head with blood on her hands. The only way out? Pull off one final con. Ooh! Joe's job is blackmailing horrible men, handsy Hollywood producers, adulterous actors, corrupt cops, the worst of the worst of today's Los Angeles. She's motivated as much by the money she's making and the debt she's paying off as by the chance to take back power for the women of the city. Eager to prove herself to her co-worker, Lou, and their enigmatic boss, known only as the Lady Upstairs, Joe takes on bigger, riskier jobs until one of her targets ends up murdered. Desperate to escape the consequences of her failed job, Joe decides to take on just one more sting, and she will do it behind her boss's back, freeing both herself and Lou from the lady's grasp. But Joe soon learns that Lou and the lady have secrets of their own, and that no woman is safe when there is a life-changing payout on the line. Ooh. That one sounds fun. Also, I have this one here trying to get my attention. She just likes to hang out on my shoulder. Don't you, Katniss? Don't you? Okay. You gotta go, though. I can't do the book thing with you. Oh. Ah. Release. Release. Okay. Alright, next up we have, this is the last one I think from the Unplugged Book Boxes, and that is A Curse of Roses by Diana Pinjuka. And this says, with just one touch, bread turns into roses. With just one bite, cheese turns into lilies. There's a famine plaguing the land, and Princess Jezebel is wasting food simply by trying to eat. Before she can even swallow her magic, her curse has turned her meal into a bouquet. She's on the verge of starving, which only reminds her that the people of Portugal have been enduring the same pain. If only it were possible to reverse her magic, then she could turn flowers into food. Fatien, a beautiful enchanted Mora, is the only one who can help, but she is trapped by magical binds. She can teach Jezebel how to control her curse if Jezebel sets her free with a kiss. As the King of Portugal's betrothed, Jezebel would be committing treason, but what good is a king if his country has starved to death? With just one kiss, Fatia is set free, and with just one kiss, Jezebel is yearning for more. She sought out Fatien to help her save the people. Now loving her could mean Jezebel's destruction. And this also sounds really interesting. This gives me like Girl Serpent Thorn, I think it is, vibes. And queer, which, yes. Awesome. Okay, give me just a minute. I need to go get some water because that was a lot of talking. And then I will return. I think the rest of the books are all books that I have ordered from different places online. Be right back. Okay, sorry if it was an angle change. While I was at it, I went ahead and swapped out my battery so it wouldn't like die in the middle of me talking. Okay, so on to, we'll start up here. The books that I purchased online, and these are not in any kind of order from where I got them from because I just mixed all them together. The first one I have here is York Book 3, The Map of Stars by Laura Ruby. And I've already read the first book in this series and really enjoyed it, and I immediately ordered the second one, and I went ahead and got this one as well. So this is set in like modern day New York, but the way things are, in the past, there were these super brilliant twins, the Morningstar twins, that created all of these like high-tech gadgets that kind of helped New York out. And they also built this ridiculously amazing hotel or apartment building. I think it may have started as a hotel but ended up as an apartment building. I don't know. But it's called the Morningstar Towers. And then eventually these twins just kind of disappeared and nobody knew what happened to them. But they did leave this cipher, this clue, saying that if somebody were to figure it out, there is this huge treasure to be found. And fast forward to current day, the Morningstar Tower houses several different families in this apartment, and somebody, this land developer, he is buying up all of these properties, and I think he's trying to figure out the cipher and get the treasure for himself, but he has purchased the Morningstar Tower, and now all of these families are going to be evicted. And so the kids of this building, they kind of band together and they're working to try to solve this cipher, and they figure out things that people haven't been able to figure out for like 50 years, and they are hoping to try to get to the point where they can figure out this cipher or figure out all the clues, get to the treasure, and save their apartment. And I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I want to continue the series. Okay, next up we have Rebound by Aga Lyswick. And this says, life is good for Anna Wright. She's a successful media executive working for one of the country's largest TV corporations. She has a boyfriend who loves her, some close friends, and a beautiful home. She has a dog called Wispa who she adores, and she loves to run to keep fit. But Anna's life starts to crumble when, out jogging on the heath one day, she meets a handsome stranger. She takes her out into unfamiliar territory, and then she has to face the consequences. There's a dark and growing sense of unease as the atmosphere becomes unsettled, and as Anna's professional life becomes more pressured and poisonous, her obsession with the handsome stranger intensifies. It also says, you can run, but you can't hide. If you like The Girl on the Train, you'll love this breathtaking psychological thriller that had us gripped until the final page. And I think this sounds really, really good. Next up we have American Royals by Catherine McGee. And pretty end pages. This says, when America won the Revolutionary War, its people offered General George Washington a crown. 2.5 centuries later, the House of Washington still sits on the throne. Like most royal families, the Washingtons have an heir and a spare. Each child knows exactly what is expected of them, but these aren't just any royals. They're American. As Princess Beatrice gets closer to becoming America's first queen regent, the duty she has embraced her entire life suddenly feels stifling. Nobody cares about the spare except when she's breaking the rules, so Princess Samantha doesn't care much about anything either, except the one boy who's off limits. Then there's Samantha's twin, Prince Jefferson. If he'd been born a generation earlier, he would have stood first in line for the throne, but the new laws of succession make him third. Most of America adores their handsome prince, but two very different girls are vying to capture his heart. New York Times bestselling author Catherine McGee imagines an alternate version of the modern world, one where the glittering age of monarchies has not yet faded, and where love is still powerful enough to change the course of history. And I think this sounds super, super interesting. Next we have Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. And this says, trust us, you belong here. Catherine House is a school of higher learning like no other. Hidden deep in the woods of rural Pennsylvania, this crucible of reformist liberal arts study has produced some of the world's best minds. For those lucky few selected, tuition is free, but acceptance comes with a price. Students must give Catherine 3 years completely removed from the outside world. Family, friends, television, music, even their personal clothing must be left behind. In return, the school promises its graduates a future of sublime power and prestige. Among this year's incoming class is Ines, who expects to trade her blurry teenage nights of parties, pills, and cruel friends for rigorous intellectual discipline, only to discover an environment of sanctioned revelry. Even the school's enigmatic director, Victoria, encourages the students to explore their minds and bodies to find themselves and their place behind the formidable iron gates of Catherine. For Inez, the house is the closest thing to a home she's ever had, but its strange protocols soon make this refuge feel increasingly like a lavish prison. And when tragedy strikes, Inez begins to suspect that the school might be hiding a dangerous agenda within the secretive group of students studying its most mysterious curriculum. And I think this sounds super, super interesting. I know a lot of people, this book has been like a big hit or miss. Like, people either really love this book or really dislike this book. So I'm really curious to see where I stand with it. Next up we have, the next 2 books we have, A Heart So Fierce and Broken. This is one that I already own and have read multiple times, but I actually owned an arc of it, and it was a signed, personalized arc, and so I wouldn't be getting rid of it, but I really wanted a hardcover to match my hardcover of A Curse So Dark and Lonely. And then I pre-ordered A Vow So Bold and Deadly, and it came at like towards the very end of the month. Super excited to read this. I'll be reading this soon. But I can't really tell you about these because this is the 2nd and 3rd books in the series. But A Curse So Dark and Lonely follows Harper, who is the belle of this Beauty and the Beast retelling. And she has cerebral palsy, but she is fierce and smart, and I absolutely adore Harper. But she's from Washington, D.C., and she gets kind of whisked away to Emberfall, which is sort of like an alternative world, but it's like palaces and knights and all of that stuff. And she's whisked there by Gray, who is the king's commander, and is brought to Ren, the prince, or the king. And Gray has been tasked with getting these girls and bringing them back so that Ren can hopefully make them fall in love with him, because he is cursed to keep becoming a beast, and the only way to break this curse is for a woman to fall in love with him. And that is where Harper comes in. And she is not okay with being kidnapped, and she is not swooning over this prince or anything, and it's a lot of fun, and I really, really enjoy it. And the 2nd book, A Heart So Fierce and Broken, follows Commander Gray, and Gray is like my book boyfriend. I love Gray. And then I can't tell you anything at all about this one because it might spoil things for the others, but I'm so excited for this. Okay, next up we have, ooh, that stack wants to fall. We have Pages & Co. The Book Wonders by Anna James. And this looks like it's going to be so cute. Look at these end pages. Like, how freaking adorable are they? This says, "Welcome to Pages & Co. Ever since her mother's disappearance, 11-year-old Tilly Pages has found comfort in the stories at Pages & Co., her grandparents' bookshop. But when her favorite characters, Anne of Green Gables and Alice from Wonderland, start showing up at the shop, Tilly's adventures become very real. Not only can she follow Anne and Alice into their books, she discovers she can book wander into any story she chooses. Tilly's surprising new ability leads her to fun and exciting adventures, but danger may be lurking on the very next page. When new secrets are uncovered, it's up to Tilly to solve the mystery of what happened to her mother all those years ago. From debut author Anna James comes an enchanting story about the magic of books and the power of imagination." I love a bookish book. I love when books have like bookish characters, or books within books, or like a bookshop or library kind of setting, like a bookish setting. I love that, and I'm super excited for this book. And There are some illustrations throughout. And it's only 281 pages, so I think this would be a quick to get through book. Alright, next up we have Jackpot, All Bets Are Off by Nick Stone. And this says, to-do list. School, barf. 5-hour shift at the gas and go. Get little bro from sitter and ready for bed. Repeat and again. When a $100 million lottery ticket from her store goes unclaimed, Rico Danger, that's Donger, thank you very much, has to find the winner. If she can unite the ticket holder with the cash, maybe Rico will finally catch a lucky break and a cut of the winnings. For help with her mission, she recruits popular and wildly wealthy Zan Macklin, the only other person who saw the suspected winner. As the hunt rolls on, the unlikely pair discover things they weren't expecting. Hidden resentments, shared struggles, and maybe even friendship. But what happens when haves and have-nots collide? Will this particular shared goal unite or divide? New York Times bestselling author Nick Stone creates unforgettable characters and an unforgettable story with unforgettable truths about class, money, dreaming big, and taking control of your own life. And I am looking forward to this one. Next we have Side Effects May Vary by Julie Murphy. And this says, when 16-year-old Alice is diagnosed with leukemia, her prognosis is grim. To maximize the time she does have, she vows to spend her final months righting wrongs, however she sees fit. She convinces her friend Harvey, who she knows has always had feelings for her, to help her with a crazy bucket list that's as much about revenge, humiliating her ex-boyfriend and getting back at her arch-nemesis, as it is about hope, doing something unexpectedly kind for a stranger and reliving some childhood memories. But just when Alice's scores are settled, she goes into remission. Now Alice is forced to face the consequences of all that she's said and done, as well as her true feelings for Harvey. But has she done irreparable damage to the people around her and the one person who matters most? Okay, these next 3 books here are the first 3 books in a series. We have The Power of Poppy Pendle by Natasha Lowe. And book 2 is The Courage of Kat Campbell. And book 3 is The Marvelous Magic of Miss Mabel. So let me tell you about book 1. This says, Poppy Pendle was born on the floor of the patisserie Marie Claire Bakery in the little town of Pottsbottom. When, as an infant, Poppy unexpectedly performs her first bit of magic, her parents, Edith and Roger, know their dream has come true. Their daughter has inherited the family gift. But as Poppy grows up, she isn't as thrilled about her magical talents. Even though she was born into a long line of witches, has inherited the extraordinary gifts of famed great-grandmother Mabel, and is enrolled at the elusive Ruthersfield Academy, a school for witchcraft, she wants to be a great baker instead. Making yummy lemon cakes, buttery almond cookies, chocolate meltaways, and caramel crunch cookies is Poppy's passion, and it makes her happy. Poppy Pendle has no choice but to take matters into her own hands. Whose life is it anyway, she asks. Natasha Lowe's first novel is charming, effervescent, and wholly original. Let Poppy Pendle into your heart, you'll be glad you did. Includes 10 kitchen-tested Poppy recipes and baking tips. And I think these are going to be super, super cute, and they're relatively short and middle grade, and I think it's just going to be a lot of witchy fun. Next up, oh, this is something I got for Marty. This is Absolutely Nasty Word Search Level 1 by Dan Fair. And stuff like Vowel Heavy or Animal Farm. There's programming languages. There was one I saw that was like all the words had X's in them. Yeah, so like solve for X. I think that might be very difficult. Anyway, I got this from Marty. Next up we have 2 graphic novels. So the first one is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I Wish. And this is season 10, volume 2. I think after season 7, the show kind of continued in graphic novel form. And so I can't really tell anything about this. I don't want to read anything about the back of this. I just wanted to accumulate them and then eventually be able to read all the way through. I absolutely freaking adore Buffy. Next up we have Angel and Faith, Where the River Meets the Sea. And this one is season 10, volume 1. Then we have The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. And this says, a bold and irreverent novel that powerfully reminds us that there are many different types of remarkable. What if you aren't the chosen one? The one who's supposed to fight the zombies or the soul-eating ghosts or whatever the heck this new thing is, with the blue lights and the death? What if you're like Mikey, who just wants to graduate and go to prom and maybe finally work up the courage to ask Henna out before someone goes and blows up the high school again? Because sometimes there are problems bigger than this week's end of the world, and sometimes you just have to find the extraordinary in your ordinary life, even if your best friend is worshipped by mountain lions. Okay, I don't know about you, but this book totally gives me Xander from Buffy vibes. Absolutely. Okay, so these next 2 books here are part of a series. So we have book 1, Dumplin by Julie Murphy, and book 2, Puddin'. And this says, with starry Texas nights, red candy suckers, and Dolly Parton songs, Dumplin is guaranteed to steal your heart. Self-proclaimed fat girl Willa Dean Dixon, dubbed Dumplin by her former beauty queen mom, has always been at home in her own skin. Her thoughts on having the ultimate bikini body? Put a bikini on your body. With her all-American beauty best friend Ellen by her side, things have always worked. Until Will takes a job at Harpy's, a local fast food joint. There she meets private school Beau, a hot former jock. Will isn't surprised to find herself attracted to Beau, but she is surprised when he seems to like her back. Instead of finding new heights of self-assurance in her relationship with Beau, Will starts to doubt herself. So she sets out to take back her confidence by doing the most horrifying thing she can imagine, entering the Miss Teen Blue Bonnet beauty pageant, along with several other unlikely candidates, to show the world that she deserves to be up there as much as any girl does. Along the way, she'll shock the hell out of Clover City and maybe herself most of all. And this sounds really cute. And I think I have seen like a trailer or something. I believe maybe this has been turned into a movie or a Netflix show or something like that. So I'll definitely have to check that out after reading this. Okay, one final stack remaining. All right, next up we have Too Close to Breathe by Olivia Kiernan. This says, in a quiet Dublin suburb, within her pristine home, Eleanor Costello is found hanging from a rope. Detective Chief Superintendent Frankie Sheehan would be more than happy to declare it a suicide. 4 months earlier, Frankie's pursuit of a killer almost ended her life, and she isn't keen on investigating another homicide. But the autopsy reveals poorly healed bones and old stab wounds, absent from medical records. A new cut is deliberately covered in paint. Eleanor's husband is missing. The search of the couple's home reveals only 2 signs of personality: a much-loved book on art and a laptop with access to the dark web. With the suspect pool growing, the carefully crafted profile of the victim crumbling with each new lead, and mysterious calls to Frankie's phone implying that the killer is closer than anyone would like, Frankie can't help but feel that something doesn't fit. And when another woman is found murdered, the same paint on her corpse, Frankie knows that unraveling Eleanor's life is the only way to find the murderer before he claims another victim, or finishes the fate Frankie only just managed to escape. Alright, next up we have Perfect Days by Ralph Montez. And this says, a twisted young medical student kidnaps a girl of his dreams and embarks on a dark and delirious road trip from Brazil's most celebrated young crime writer. Teo Avelar is a loner, living out his days with his paraplegic mother in Rio de Janeiro. He doesn't have many friends, and the only time he feels honest human emotion is in the presence of his medical school cadaver. That is, until he meets Clarice. She's almost his exact opposite, exotic, spontaneous, and unafraid to speak her mind. Convinced that all he needs is time to win her over, Teo's blooming obsession leads him to abduct her. So begins their twisted odyssey across Brazil. Brimming with suspense from the very first page, Perfect Days is a psychological thriller in the vein of The Talented Mr. Ripley, a chilling and lurid journey in the passenger seat next to a psychopath. Oh, and this is also a relatively short one. It's only 260 pages. Next up we have, this one's a middle grade. I read another book by this author and really enjoyed it. And so I wanted to read more. And this is Rump, The True Story of Rumpelstiltskin by Liesl Shirtliff. And this says, in a magical kingdom where your name is your destiny, a 12-year-old Rump is the butt of everyone's joke. But when he finds an old spinning wheel, his luck seems to change. Rump discovers he has a gift for spinning straw into gold, as much gold as he wants. His best friend Red warns him that magic is dangerous, and she's right. With each thread he spins, he weaves himself deeper into a curse. To break the spell, Rump must go on a perilous quest, fighting off pixies, trolls, poison apples, and a wickedly foolish queen. The odds are against him, but with courage and friendship and a cheeky sense of humor, he just might triumph in the end. And this sounds super cute. I think the other one I read was called Grump, and it was about the grumpy dwarf from Snow White, and I also really enjoyed that. Okay, next up we have Black Cats and Four-Leaf Clovers, the origins of old wives' tales and superstitions in our everyday lives. And this is, cross your fingers, knock on wood, and clutch your rabbit's foot a little tighter. In this charming and endlessly diverting book, Harry Oliver delves into the stories behind the traditions and superstitions that permeate our everyday lives, unearthing the fascinating history of these weird and wonderful notions. So before you search for any more four-leaf clovers, worry about the next Friday the 13th, or avoid walking under any ladders, dip into this amazing tome and discover why breaking a mirror brings 7 years of bad luck, the best day of the week to ask for a favor, or why you should never jump over a child in Turkey. And I'm really interested in this, so I'm curious to see what's all in here. Okay, so this next book is called Tales of the Madman Underground by John Barnes, and the flap doesn't really tell you enough about the book, so I pulled it up on Goodreads so I could tell you what this said. Wednesday, September 5th, 1973, the first day of Carl Shoemaker's senior year in stifling Lightsburg, Ohio. For years, Carl's been part of what he calls the Madman Underground, a group of kids forced for no apparent reason to attend group therapy during school hours. Carl has decided that senior year is going to be different. He's going to get out of the Madman Underground for good. He's going to act and be normal, quote unquote normal. But normal, of course, is relative. Carl has 5 after-school jobs, 1 dead father, 1 seriously unhinged drunk mother, and a huge attitude. Welcome to a gritty, uncensored roller coaster ride narrated by the singular Carl Shoemaker. And I think this is going to be interesting. Oh, and this was also an award winner. It's the Michael L. Prince Award for Excellence in Young Adult Literature. It's an honor book. Okay, next up we have The Shadow Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this book and they've loved it. Ooh, I just noticed the spine is so shiny. And there is like some roses embossed on the cover. I don't know if you can see it or not. This says, Alexandra is tired of being overlooked, but she has a plan to gain power. 1. Woo the Shadow Queen. 2. Marry him. 3. Kill him and take his kingdom for herself. No one knows the extent of the freshly crowned Shadow King's power. Some say he can command the shadows that swirl around him to do his bidding. Others say they speak to him, whispering the thoughts of his enemies. Regardless, Alexandra knows what she deserves, and she's going to do everything within her power to get it. But Alexandra's not the only one trying to kill the king. As the attempts on his life are made, she finds herself trying to keep him alive long enough for him to make her his queen, all while struggling not to lose her heart. After all, who better for a Shadow King than a cunning, villainous queen? Oh, sounds so good. I'm very excited for this. Okay, next up we have, this was a book that I got from Marty. It's called Atomic Adventures, Secret Islands, Forgotten N-Rays, and Isotopic Murder, A Journey into the Wild World of Nuclear Science by James Mahaffey. And for those that don't know, Marty is actually a nuclear reactor operator, and he's a big nerd and he loves this kind of stuff, and so I thought he would enjoy this book. This says, acclaimed nuclear engineer and author James Mahaffey unearths forgotten nuclear endeavors throughout history that were sometimes harebrained, often risky, and always fascinating. Whether you are a scientist or a poet, pro-nuclear energy or staunch opponent, conspiracy theorist or pragmatist, James Mahaffey's books have opened up the world of nuclear science like never before. With clear explanations of some of the most complex scientific endeavors in history, Mahaffey's new book looks back at the atom's wild, secretive past and then toward its potentially bright future. Mahaffey unearths lost reactors on far-flung Pacific islands and trees that were exposed to active fission that changed gender or bloomed in the dead of winter. He explains why we have nuclear submarines but not nuclear aircraft, and why cold fusion doesn't exist. And who knew that radiation counting was once a fashionable trend? Though parts of the nuclear history might seem like a fiction mashup, Mahaffey's vivid prose holds the reader in thrall of the infectious energy of scientific curiosity and ingenuity that may one day hold the key to solving our energy crisis or sending us to Mars. Next up, we have The Land of Stories, A Grim Warning by Chris Colfer. This is book 3 in The Land of Stories. And I can't really tell you about this one because it's book 3. But I have read the first one. It's The Wishing Spell. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's about these two kids who, for their, I think, 12th birthday, they're given this fairy tale book. One that has been a big part of their life growing up. Their father and their grandmother were always telling them stories from this storybook. And their father has passed away and their mother is, really down and depressed. And the grandmother has moved away. But she's come for their birthday and gives them this storybook. And something interesting is going on with this storybook. It starts making sounds and stuff. And one of the kids, they're actually twins. We have a girl and a boy, and I can't remember their names right offhand, but she starts investigating this book, and turns out she can put things into the book. She doesn't know what happens to them. They just fall into the book. Pens, books, whatever. And one day she decides that she is going to just try sticking her arm in to see what happens. And as she's doing this, her brother has just figured out that she is going to try to go into this book, and he comes to try to stop her, and he startles her while she's got her arm in, and she falls in, so he has to go in to try to get her. And while they're in this storybook, they get to meet all of these storybook characters. They're like real life people, and they get to see more of them as actual people and not just these characters in the book, and learn more about them. And that I love that. And they get to meet like the princesses, and there's villains, and all of the ones that we know, like the Disney princesses and stuff. You get to meet all of them, and Little Red Riding Hood and all of that. And they're having lots of adventures while trying to collect these items needed for this spell called the wishing spell, which will allow them to get back home. And that's all I can really tell you about that book without spoiling anything, but I absolutely loved it. It was 5 stars for me. I highly recommend it, and I want to read the entire series. Okay, so the last book that I have here was actually one that Kayla from Books and Lala has chosen for one of her Literally Dead book club picks. I think this is the book for March, and so I went ahead and ordered it, and that is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. And this book is interesting. Like, it's very long, but it's okay. So we have some things that are like, the pages are very full like this. There's some like, so we got some text in the box here. We have text along here. We have text going this way, which has to be read upside down. There are several pages that just have something like right there at the bottom. Like, just a little bit on each page. Like, there's a lot like that. And then there's like journal entry kind of things. There's a lot. I have no, there's this massive index in the back. Like page 663 to page 705. This is all index. And then there's a bunch of appendixes. There's some, dude, look at some of these pages. Okay, so let me see if I can, let me read the little flap here to tell you what it says. Years ago, when House of Leaves was first being passed around, it was nothing more than a badly bundled heap of paper, parts of which would occasionally surface on the internet. No one could have anticipated the small but devoted following this terrifying story would soon command. Starting with an odd assortment of marginalized youth, musicians, tattoo artists, programmers, strippers, environmentalists, and adrenaline junkies, the book eventually made its way into the hands of older generations, who not only found themselves in those strangely arranged pages, but also discovered a way back into the lives of their estranged children. Now, for the first time, this astonishing novel is made available in book form, complete with the original colored words, vertical footnotes, and newly added second and third appendices. The story remains unchanged, focusing on a young family that moves into a small home on Ash Tree Lane, where they discover something terribly wrong. Their house is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Of course, neither Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist Will Davison nor his companion Karen Green was prepared to face the consequences of that impossibility, until the day their 2 little children wandered off and their voices eerily began to return another story of creature darkness, of an ever-growing abyss behind a closet door, and of that unholy growl which soon would tear through their walls and consume all their dreams. So, it's like, I don't know, like a ghost story, or I don't know. But I was intrigued enough, and as I said, it is part of the Literally Dead book club, and I want to participate. This is definitely going to be an interesting read, that's for sure. And to be honest, like looking at the appendices that are in here, I'm not sure if you're, I guess you're supposed to read those. There are some pictures. So, yeah, this is the other book. This thing is huge. as I said, like 700 and something pages. Or, well, if you don't count the index, but you do count the appendices, it would be 662 pages. And very floppy. So those are all 46 books that I accumulated. Have you guys read any of them? Did you like them? Did you not? Comment down below and let me know. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye!